Archaeological excavations of Styria have shown that immigrants from the Scandinavian peninsula appeared on the territory of modern Russia approximately in the 7th to 8th centuries, that is, earlier than in Europe. A large number of uninhabited lands, a small population, the absence of a centralized state and a certain similarity in religious beliefs helped to avoid bloody clashes between the Normans and the local Finno-Ugric and small Slavic tribes. And while in the east the inhabitants of the country of the fjords are peaceful with the indigenous population, in the west the appearance of the Vikings turned into a bloody nightmare that lasted almost 3 centuries. For years after the first appearance off the coast of Wessex, in July 793, the Vikings attacked the island of Lindisfarne, where they sacked and burned the monastery of St. Cuthbert. This event shocked the whole of Christian Europe and caused a great resonance, because the monasteries were considered inviolable. Here, the foreigners did not spare either the monks or the shrine. Thus began the confrontation between Christian and pagan cultures. The commandment "Thou shalt not kill" was opposed to the sacralization of war, the cult of warrior gods, and the glorification of brave men in heroic sagas. We can judge the events of that time only by rare Christian and slave-written sources. All of them unanimously testify to only one thing: there were a lot of Scandinavian pagans, and they had no single center, kingdom, ruler. Numerous detachments of different numbers were led by the king, and if it was possible to negotiate with one detachment and pay off with silver or other good, then this did not at all guarantee that another detachment of sea robbers who came in 2 or 3 months would turn out to be just as accommodating, and there was simply not enough money to pay off everyone. The first predatory raids were only the beginning of the military colonization of the British archipelago. The first appearance of the Scandinavians on the Irish shores dates back to about 795. Since then, the pressure has only intensified. Vikings appeared in every bay, any place suitable for landing, and after about half a century, in 839, this horde of robbers from across the sea has a hint of centralization of power. The Norwegian Torkil, according to other sources Turgeis, firmly settled in Northern Ireland, proclaiming himself King of Eire, and at this time, the Vikings founded the town of Dublin on the site of a small village they had plundered, actively building and fortifying harbors, which would later turn into large cities. In the meantime, these trading posts are being used as transshipment points and bases for preparing major campaigns on the European continent. The very stay of the Scandinavians in Ireland and Britain turned into a bloody confrontation with the local Christian population. The reason was precisely conflicts on religious grounds. While respecting the right of every nation to its own god, the pagans did not honor the shrines at all and treated the precious icon frames simply as metal. In addition, in the middle of the 9th century, the Danes began to claim the lands occupied by the Norwegians, who were supported by the local population. In 853, King Olaf the White managed to gather a large fleet and completely drive out the Danes, which brought several decades of relative silence and peace. If the Vikings did not have any special problems with the conquest of the divided kingdoms on the islands, then on the mainland they were opposed by a formidable force. The state of the Franks, which became an empire during the reign of Charlemagne, at first did not consider the Scandinavian pirates to be any serious threat. But after reports from the British Isles about the cruelty and atrocities of the pagans, the Franks united and tried to repel the unexpected disaster. Having borrowed from the Italians the experience of building stone fortresses and turning monasteries into well-fortified centers, the Christians secured themselves from the sea. But the Scandinavians, taking advantage of the fact that their ships, druckers, could also walk along the rivers, penetrated deep into Europe, bringing death, ruin, and horror. The answer to this was the construction of low stone bridges that blocked the rivers, preventing the battle boats from going far. Another measure was the strictest, under pain of death, a ban on the arms trade with the pagans. Pirates could get the famous Carolingian swords only in battle. Nevertheless, the raids continued. The strategic initiative of the Franks was lost after the Vikings managed to firmly gain a foothold in the lower reaches of the Seine, found cities there, which became a springboard for long campaigns. In March 845, a detachment of 5,000 Vikings on 120 drakkers climbed the Seine and landed near Paris. This horde, according to legend, was commanded by Ragnar Lothbrok. After the devastation of the Abbey of St. Denis by the pagans and the loss of one of the detachments, Charles the Bald had to save Paris by paying a huge ransom of 7,000 livres. From this campaign, the warriors of Ragnar returned with more than 2.5 tons of gold and silver. Of course, after such a success, the pagans ravaged Paris more than once. But the Great Siege of 885 to 886 became a turning point. There is no exact data on the number of troops, since the chroniclers of that time traditionally exaggerate the enemy army and speak modestly about their own small forces. It is most probable that 300 Drakkars were opposed by 200 warriors and armed townspeople. The defense of the city was led by Bishop Goslin and Count Ed of Paris. Having well fortified Paris and built 2 additional bridges that blocked the pirate fleet, the defenders of the city flatly refused to pay the ransom. A long siege began. The Vikings by that time also mastered new methods of warfare and actively used siege engines. But still, a long war was unusual for them. Part of the Scandinavians left for easier and faster prey, and the Parisians managed to call for help Karl Tolstoy, who used the Vikings for his own selfish purposes and simply sent them to rob Burgundy, where a rebellion broke out at that time. The Great Siege showed that it was possible to fight successfully against the Normans and became a turning point in psychology. But it was only 2 centuries later that the Vikings were finally defeated. If you liked this publication, subscribe to our channel and we will publish more interesting and informative videos for you.